Okay, so I am trying streaming for the first time today. We are currently doing this off a mobile phone inside. And so the connection in here is not as good as I might want it to be otherwise. So we're just going to have to hope that it stays stable enough. I've had to reduce the video quality a little bit as well to make sure things, I think, happen in real time. So let's get started, and we'll just start by talking about the deck here. I'm going to be playing Thieves today. This is a deck that I've played quite a bit in Vintage. It's probably not a good deck at the moment in the current meta. I think if you're playing to win, you probably shouldn't be playing this. But this is a strategy that I just find particularly fun. We'll just talk a tiny little bit about deck construction here. So I've configured this deck slightly differently to what a lot of other Thieves players. I'm on a single Notion Thief main with a second in the side. Just because I think Thief is only really amazing if you stick it in front of an opposing deck or an opposing paradoxical, or if you're just using it to kind of lock up the game. The rest of the time, it's often not a terribly effective card. So 3 Preordains instead of... There's a lot of other Thieves decks out there running something like a Gush or a Wheel of Fortune, or I've seen some that are running, I think it's Give Some Given in that slot. I prefer the Preordain because I kind of like Xerox Theory. And while this isn't, one of the full-blown Xerox decks, we're trying to get as close as we can to it. We have standard all the fast mana, 16 lands, including Academy, Library, and Strip Mine. Quick word about Library here. I've heard some people saying lately it's not an amazing card in Vintage at the moment. There is something to be said for that. It's not a terribly good card against like the fast combo decks. So Storm, Paradoxical, it's often not very effective. It's terrible against Dredge. I don't like it against Survival either. However, it is still amazing against a significant amount of the meta. So a good solid, I reckon, maybe 50%. So I think it's still worth a consideration. We're a big blue deck, so we're running a couple of mana drains. Mana Drain also has some issues, I think, mostly around how difficult it is to cast. But I just think the cards are really fun, so I want to be casting Mana Drain. We have an Abrade just as a random out for creatures or artifacts, so against shops. We have Yorg's Will as a value card. We're playing a couple of decks. We're playing a Tinker package. And, of course, all the standard card draw. So, Cruise, Dig, A-Call, Brainstorm, Preordain. Brainstorm, Ponder. We'll quickly go over the sideboard here as well. A couple of Mindbreak traps for most blue mirrors. Particularly effective against Outcome, and we're a bit soft to Storm, so I quite like it there. Energy Flux for shops, Deluge as a sweeper, a couple of copies of Bifrost and an Ingature as extra shops cards, a second Notion Thief for Outcome, and our Dredge Hate with Cage serving a dual purpose against Oath. I think I probably need to reconfigure the sideboard at some point. I think the crypts can probably be something better. So maybe even just like a split of maybe Yixlid, Jailer, Ravenous Trap, and Crypt. But I just haven't got around to doing it yet. And I've already signed up for this league. So with all that in mind, let's get started. Hopefully we can find a match quickly. Sometimes the leagues can take a little while to get paired. So hopefully that won't happen for us today. if anybody has any questions about deck list, deck choice, or anything like that as well, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer there. And so what I'm going to try to do today is we'll go through this league, we'll see how I'm feeling at the end of it, and I might fire up another, whether or not that be Legacy or maybe I will fire up Vintage Dredge. I've been enjoying playing with the new Vintage Dredge list that I think Rich Shea put together. I think it's really, really, really strong. It's a pitch dredge variant, so it's there are no lands in there that can cast spells. You're very heavily reliant on Bazaar, and it's built with a lot of extra interaction. So it's cut things like Bloodghast, which are traditionally in there, and instead you're just playing amalgams because they pitched a force. A fair chunk of Icarids, and then Mindbreak Traps, Missteps, Force of Wills, and some Graveyard Hate as well, just to give you, I think, like a really broad set of tools across the meta to make sure that you can take game one, and then some narrower bits and pieces then you can, like you've got your narrower cards for the sideboard there, so your lands that you're not really using in game one are all in the sideboard. Okay, cool, we've been paired. So we'll take the play here. And I think I want to snap this hand off. It's not amazing, but we have top and key as a draw engine. We're going to be able to cast a Notion Thief probably turn 2. And turn 1 we're going to be able to cast and activate top. And so top in and of itself should probably be able to get us going and start finding us cards. You typically want to have some kind of card draw available. Let's just hope that this doesn't get misstepped. So that's in play now. Top's not always amazing. I think there's a bunch of matchups where it's a little bit too slow. This is looking like a matchup where it's going to be good, I think. We're playing a blue mirror of some form. For anyone that's watching at the moment, how's microphone volume? So I forgot to spin my top there. That was silly. It's not going to make much of a difference because we're just going to time walk. And I think try to make another land drop here. We'll grab a C. We're going to hope our opponent isn't playing much in the way of wastelands. And I guess I kind of want the Preordain this turn, I think. So we're going to draw the Preordain and cast it. And I think we'll take the Academy. And that's going to let us drop a Notion Thief into play, I think. So what does that give us? 2 off the Academy and 2 more. So we don't even need to play out the Mana Crypt just yet. We're going to try to get our opponent to force the Notion Thief, and then try to resolve the Jace that's on top of our library. Fantastic. So our opponent's probably going to try and steal our Jet. And we're going to make his deck worthless. We will play out the Mana Crypt now. We need the mana. We can't currently cast the Jace that's in hand. And I think this should resolve. And we probably want to... Given he's on red, I think we actually need to Fate Seal here. I think he can have the Mental Misstep. Maybe that wasn't correct. I'm not 100% sure here. Okay, so I don't think we want any of these cards, unfortunately. So we'll probably... I think we'll maybe take the Misty, so that we can play it and fetch it away. And we're going to unfortunately lose our Notion Thief. Notably exiled as well, so we can't Yorg's Will back into it a little bit later. Not that that's our main goal with Will. Actually, maybe we do want to... I think maybe now that the Notion Thief's gone, we probably want to draw the Misstep. And... maybe the... Okay, so I don't think we want the Mox at the moment. I think we have enough mana. Notably, while this deck makes fairly heavy use of artifact mana, it's not as reliant on it as a lot of as maybe like maybe it appears, and maybe as reliant on it as Paradoxical is either. You can do quite a bit just on the lands that you have. So you're not as cold to Stony Silence, you're not as cold to Null Rod and things like that. I think we might... We'll hold this Misstep for now. So we're holding the Misstep so that we have a blue card to pitch to Force. We're also not terribly worried about our opponent brainstorming at this point, I don't think. While, it's a draw 3, and a draw 3 is always good, it's not a back-breaking card for us at the moment. And I think the card we're most worried about at the moment is actually just straight up like a Red Blast. Okay, so our opponent's got a library, which, given long enough, I think 2 more turns and they're going to be able to get on the library. I think we're just going to be straight up better off just because of, Jace being a better card than Library of Alexandria, realistically. We get to draw an extra card a turn, and we can, picking the best of 4 or 5 or whatever it is every turn. The only downside being that we're a lot softer to a red. So we're going to continue not to fight over these cantrips. Noticeably, our opponent does have a Misstep in hand that we're aware of. And so opponent just thinks they've made a mistake of some sort. I might turn chat off. Alright, so opponent thinks he's made a bad enough mistake that he has to scoop. Now, while our opponent does have creature removal, they are a Dak Faden deck, so I do think I like the Notion Thief here. Just timed right, it's likely to be a blowout. Once again, because they're a Dak Faden deck, we're going to cut Blightsteel Colossus, and with that, we're going to cut Tinker and Mana Crypt. I think we want the Mindbreak traps, and I have a feeling they're going to... We haven't seen Young Pyromancer, but I'd rather hedge against it, and our question now is whether or not we cut Vamp or a Jace. Given we haven't seen the Pyromancer yet, I think I'd rather cut the Vamp. Although, actually, we can probably cut a land. Let's cut a land. We haven't seen any Wastelands, so we're not going to play around that. While Vamp is one of our weakest cards, realistically, it's stronger than Preordain. It is a tutor. It is a top-deck tutor, however. So I'm assuming the big angry fish is Ben. We're playing Thieves today. And I think we're going to keep this hand. We have an Ancestral, we have a Force of Will, we have a couple of lands. The question now is whether or not we fight over the Ancestral. So when our opponent fetches, which hopefully they'll do now, I think we can wait. And what do we think? Do we fire this off now? I think we can wait a little bit longer. It gives our opponent a chance to draw more interaction, but it also gives us a chance to draw more interaction, and our hand's looking really good right now. We have 3 restricted draw spells. Yeah, so Trout Stuffing. This is definitely a hand. I think though at some point we're going to have to pitch one of our. All right, it's down to 4 cards. We're probably going to have to pitch one of our other draw spells here. And I think we probably want to pitch Cruise at this point. So I'm not sure if it's correct to Ancestral there. So currently our opponent has two lands and 1 mystery card in hand. This is a really greedy play on my behalf. And it looks like it's just about to go really badly wrong for me here. Uh-oh. Does he have another Force of Will? Oh, okay, he's going to dig. Okay. So now, I think we're stuffed. It was a bit too greedy. And he's almost definitely going to find something off the dig through time there. I mean, while technically you can whiff on a dig, 7 cards is just, too many to not find something. Yeah, and there we go. All right, so we're getting blown out. That's okay. Our opponent's not really doing anything here, so that's good from our perspective. I think we're going to fetch for thinning on our next turn, and we're going to hold on to the Moxes to... We'd like to draw like a DAC or something, I think, and start turning the Moxes into relevant cards. So our opponent's on some kind of rug deck. Now, notably, we're playing out one of the Moxes now just so we can hardcast Mindbreak Trap. Oh, yeah, I think we're gonna... I think we need to Mindbreak Trap Tarmogoyf. This is interesting. I think I did see this list around the other day on MTG Goldfish. And I can't remember what it played. I know there were 2 or 3 Goyfs, which seem really good in Vintage. Although maybe not so much against the Pyromancer decks that are kicking about, but it's a very big beat stick. So we're going to need to draw something relevant really soon. We played out the wrong Mox as well, which was silly, but things happen. So I think maybe a Deluge gets us out of this. Okay, and a Braid will not do it. So we're going to go on to a third game here. So I almost feel like with a Tarmogoyf, we almost want the Blightsteel, but it is a really high risk card. So the question is whether or not it's worth cutting something like Jace, Mindbreak Trap, or maybe like Jace, Mindbreak Trap, Notion Thief for a Blightsteel package. This is a tough one. I actually don't know what to do here. All right, I think we're going to... I think we want the Blightsteel package, and we're going to fight over Dax. So we'll cut a Notion Thief, we'll cut a Jace, and I guess we'll actually cut a Vamp. I think I like the interaction more than the top deck tutor. And we're going to assume that we're probably not going to have a gotcha moment with the Notion Thief. Oh, shit. What do I do with this hand? I think we're going to keep. We've got 2 land drops to make. So we just need to find a 3rd land or any mocks, and we can try to cast a Dak Faden. Perfect. Justin, you don't want to see my tits. Trust me. They're far too saggy. I think now I actually want to wait on the Dak and cast a top. Yeah, and we'll let that get misstepped. That's fine. So Gitaxian Probe is going to give our opponent a fair bit of information here. Notably, it's a card I've taken out of this list, just on the basis that I don't think it's a very good card. At least in, like what this is, which is a control deck. Yes, it informs your play. But I tend to think, if you're good enough at sequencing your counter magic, which you have to trust your ability to do, then I think you should, that should be enough. And Gitaxian Probe, it doesn't give you card selection. It doesn't give you anything terribly relevant. Like, it doesn't give you what you're actually chasing. Okay, so we're going to try to resolve a Dak here. And the question is whether or not we try to fight over it, and I think it might be too greedy to fight over it here. We're going to hold off playing the Mana Crypt and the Academy at the moment. Our opponent knows about the Academy. He doesn't know about the Mana Crypt. The reason to hold off, in my opinion, right here is just Mana Crypt is going to make it easier for our opponent to kill us. We are playing it now, notably just because we're now on a dig through time plan. Do we care about Ancient Grudge? No, okay, we're going to let that go. So we do care about Wasteland, and Wasteland is actually going to make us need to dig here. So we're just going to use the Underground Sea there as fuel for our dig through time. So we don't have to strip just yet, and we don't have to tap the strip mine either. It's not terribly relevant in this situation, but I just think, it's fundamentally the correct thing to do the majority of the time. I really hope our opponent doesn't have anything else, although that's very unlikely at the moment. Okay, so opponent gets to gush, so they're going to see 2 new cards. So perhaps we were meant to dig at the end of our turn when we got Ancient Grudged. Alright, I think we can't cast the Jace just yet. That's annoying. Which is a problem because I feel like that's going to make it a lot harder for us to get Jace online. So I have a feeling we're out of this game now, unfortunately. I think if we can top deck a Mox, we might be okay. But I think anything other than that, we're probably going to be in some trouble. Now let's just hope our opponent goes something like Preordain into Treasure Cruise. Preordain into Treasure Cruise would... Oof. This is a beating. So we didn't see Wastelands at any other point in any of the other games. And now we've seen two. I guess we need to preordain here, that's fine. He's probably going to misstep it if he can. He can pay for Flusterstorm. So we're going to take the interaction. We can bottom the land. We do kind of want the land, but I think at this point we're not resolving Jace anytime soon, so we just want to maybe try to build interaction. So this is going to be a Digger, a Cruise. Storm count 1, we can't reasonably counter that. So let's hope maybe our opponent decides to like dig Cruise, play a threat. So on the one hand, at least our opponent doesn't have any way to win the game from here. On the other hand, we're in a really bad spot. Opponent's going to grudge that, isn't he? I forgot about grudge. So I guess we're going to be fine to misstep Preordain here. If only so that we can get Storm Count a little higher. And hopefully he'll now grudge the Soul Ring and we can Mind Break trap it. Okay, and we got what we wanted there. Alright, so I guess we'll let all the Fluster Storms go. Yeah, we can only pay for 5. And then I think we're going to Mindbreak Trap again. And we're going to hope like hell that what this is going to do is run our opponent out of gas. So much of my mana does our opponent have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, so I guess we're just going to have to accept the fact that Sol Ring's gone. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Yeah, so our Fluster Storm is unfortunately just not quite... We needed one more Storm for that to be... for us to be able to win that counter war there. So we're going to choose to, I think, probably soak some damage from the Goyf. Let's take the DT. For now. We'll Deluge next turn. And we'll probably pitch Fluster Storm. Yeah, this game has been a little bit of a tough one. Like, I think we're still in it, but we've had some hard choices. Like, I'm surprised we're still in it at this point because our opponent's just drawn so many cards. And I feel like, you know, he is definitely the favourite to win from here, but I don't think we're out. Alright, so we definitely need to Deluge here, and we need to Deluge for, I guess, 5? Instant sorcery land artifact. So he's probably not going to be able to put anything else in the bin to grow the Goyf, I don't think. Alright, and unfortunately that's game. So, let's just hope the next one goes a bit better. Yeah, man. He look, he got a bunch of draw spells there, so it's not surprising he had a lot. But goddamn, just like getting relentlessly wastelanded did not leave us feeling good. This hand's awkward. I think we're going to just keep it Vamp for Ancestral and hope that gets us there. It's not an ideal hand by any stretch, but it's it's one that I think can go places, so Seek a Taxian Probe again. Once again, we're not terribly worried about it. Maybe that means we should Vamp Tutor here. Or should have vamped in response to the probe. Right, we're not going to try too hard to... Actually, no, we can conceal what we're on for a little bit longer. So let's just grab an Underground Sea. And I guess we'll Ancestral on his upkeep, or if he fetches beforehand. So we're definitely Ancestraling here. And then I think we're going to try and stick Jace next turn. I'd kind of like to draw something like... Is this going to be a Dak Faden? So I think we need to force Dak here. Just the reason being, Dak's probably going to steal our Mox. I think I just want to go ahead and snap a call. At least for now. We're going to do this, so hopefully next turn our opponent has less interaction. So our opponent, in our last game, our opponent had a lot of gas. Here we're, at the moment, just going straight over the top of him. So the only thing that would actually kill us here, I think, is maybe a Mentor. Dak's fine. We're going to cast Jace, and if it gets countered, we're going to Jace again. And as expected, Jace is just, always going to be better than Dak. Dak gives you quite a lot of filtering. But... Jace just, it actually draws you cards as well. We're also going to, unfortunately, need to Fate Seal again. Yeah, we might do Dredge a little bit later to Decido. And, Just because I've been playing with Rich Shea's new dredge list, which is super good. It's really broken. So we'd really like to see a Notion Thief here. A Notion Thief would just make our day better. I think we'd really love to just draw it, stick it in front of Dak, hope that it actually sticks. Treasure Cruise is fine. We're not terribly worried about that at the moment. He's probably going to strip. I think he should have stripped Volk there. Like, while Academy is pretty busted, it's not really doing anything other than tapping for 1 blue mana at the moment. And really, I don't actually want to draw more Moxes at this point. Tinker's not good enough at this point. And I honestly do not care about misstep from here. We have top, we have Jace. Our opponent can draw 1,000,000 cards. We're going to draw more, with better filtering as well. Yeah, that bolt was a bit weird. Like, you're not winning the game with your lightning bolt, like a single bolt, so you might as well hold on to it to, like, pitch it to Dak, do anything else with it. Oh, look, yeah, I guess you're right. It did protect the Dak from Snapcaster Mage. Oh. Pyro. Let's hope we can find a drain. So Pyro's how we lose this matchup. Because at the moment we're doing a better impression of a control deck. Our opponent wants to be... Oof. There was nothing on top, was there? No. So I don't know how many people saw my intro when I was talking about the list and card choices and its place in the meta. I will be the first to say this isn't a deck you should play if your main objective is to try to win. There are better decks out there, our opponents being an example of that. Notably, we don't care about the fact that Blightsteel is in our hand at the moment. So we're going to get another turn with Jace, hopefully. Which is going to be kind of important from here, because I think the way we're going to be able to win this is probably by assembling Vault Key. Okay, so I think we're taking the... Oof. So he's getting 2 extra turns, so he's going to kill... Or does that put lethal on the board? So he bashes for 4, then bashes for 7, and then 7. Or 8 and 8. I think we can pack it in here. Well, actually, Flusterstorm is live from here, isn't it? Alright, so now what we actually need is for... I'm not sure how much damage we're taking next turn. I suspect it might be enough, all in all... It's not going to leave us dead on board, so that's... That at least is good. So I guess if our opponent top decks a Snapcaster Mage or another Bolt, we're dead. Otherwise, I think he's kind of a little bit incentivized to kill the Jace here. So is he attacking? He's attacking us. Alright, Snapcaster Mage does it. So we want Deluge. Notably, we want to keep Blightsteel in this matchup. The Tinker package is a really good way to beat Young Pyromancer. It does mean that you're fighting over Jace's. Sorry, not Jace's, Dax. Because you don't want to lose the robot. But I think we do actually need it to be able to beat a resolved Pyromancer. Deluge also works. Blightsteel's usually just a clean answer. We're going to cut Jace, we're going to cut Vamp, and I guess we'll cut a land and hope that they don't have Wastelands. We didn't see any, so we're going to assume that that's okay. And I think cutting these is going to be better than... So Jace is just going to be worse in the face of a Young Pyromancer. We don't have anything else that we'd rather cut. Other things that we have are like maybe going down on Preordains or possibly Mana Drains or something like that, or I don't think they're worthwhile. We could cut the Notion Thief. We'd rather have like gotcha moment potential. Definitely need to mull this. This is terrible. And this is much better. I think we want to top deck that Brainstorm. And just so we can make sure... Do we want the Strip Mine? I think we're going to keep the Strip Mine. So we're going to hope that stripping them turn 1 is going to be enough to buy us a significant amount of time. So for anybody who's played like a lot of Legacy and a lot of Vintage, Vintage is weird in that there's a fairly low land count, but also like a relatively low cantrip density. So you have a lot of draw spells. A lot of them are conditional. All right, we'll just go ahead and strip now. So a lot of them are conditional, so you don't get the kind of what do you call it? You don't get the consistency that you get with a lot of the legacy Turbo Xerox kind of decks that just, you know, have a million cantrips, make their land drops every single time, and just get to, you know, do whatever the hell it is that they want to do. Yeah, I mean, it is just because they're all restricted. Like, no delusions there. They realistically, they just make decks so consistent that it's... I don't think you can justify anything. But is that Storm 1, 2... Alright, we can't trap that yet. So I guess let's try and resolve a top. So I tried to cast an Ancestral there just because we fired off the top. If top resolves, it means he definitely doesn't have a misstep. The only card we need to dodge at that point is a Force of Will. Oh, we would like to have the Force the turn prior. Maybe we should have drawn off top in response. But... yeah, you can misstep that. That's fine. So one of the reasons that I think this deck is not terribly amazing within the context of the meta comes down heavily just to Lotus Voltaic Key. We definitely want the Misty. It literally all comes down to the fact that these Xerox decks make they end up making these really consistent or like comparatively consistent busted creature strategies. So like you just get to enable a Pyromancer or a Mentor, and decks that would traditionally be like, I think, quite good in control matchups just end up losing to the fact that they're not playing one of these threats that just plays into the fact that you're using a million small spells and little pieces of interaction. I don't know if there's a simple solution to that. I guess like outcome is a good way of dealing with that, but So this is a worry. Our opponent's not casting anything. So if opponent's not casting anything, I don't think the Force of Will Mindbreak Trap that we have in hand is going to be enough. At some point, I think he's going to have to start cantripping. He's going to start finding cantrips, and he's going to be able to start casting them. And when that starts happening, I think we're probably going to start having a very hard time. And so at the moment, I'm trying to... We have a Voltaic key on top of the library. What I actually want to do is just assemble Vault key. I think that's going to be our most streamlined win from here. But I think to be able to punch that through from where we are right now is going to take a bit of work. Because at the moment we have minimal interaction, and our opponent's hand is clearly multiple pieces of interaction. Gosh. Oh, that would have been nice. I'm not sure if we'd need to force here, but I think it feels right. So opponent's going to misstep here, that's fine. What do we have? I think we have a Notion Thief up next. And so I guess our plan from here is to try and just cripple our opponent's hand with a Notion Thief. It's unlikely. But if we do manage to pull it off, it will... probably end up may or may not win us the game. Okay, so what's our opponent going to cast here? They're going to cast Ancestral. Okay, so we have like a very narrow margin here. Our opponent can try to counter this. And if they get to counter, if they try to counter it, Mindbreak Trap is live. So it's very slim, it's very unlikely this is going to work. But it's kind of our best shot. All right, and I think that unfortunately puts us out of the game here, so we can just concede. So it's been a pretty rough start for us. We've just been... we've just been crushed, really. We ran into a rug deck playing Tarmogoyfs to begin with. Our opponent just had a million Spell Piercers and Wastelands in the final game to seal it up. And here we were out Xeroxed, and unfortunately, other decks just play that plan better than we do, and it's just lost us the game there. So fingers crossed we can get something a little better for our next match. I'd really love to see Paradoxical somewhere. I think we have a much better game plan against Paradoxical than we do against a lot of the other matches. I think the young Pyromancer decks are like even at best, and often slightly unfavoured. I wonder if maybe we should... I guess at some point I will try playing one of the more modern Thieves lists, running other bigger draw spells instead of preordains, and just see whether or not that gives, a smoother deck or a better deck. I feel like I can see times where it would be valuable, especially to restock your hand, where you can, just wheel or something, and you'll probably draw just absurd amounts of gas, but I just like being able to make my land drops as well, so... So I guess we've got to win out from here. If I get to like match 4 and I'm 0-3, or I've lost 3 matches at that point, I might drop and we'll start another league, and we can talk about. I guess I can work out whether or not I'll do Dredge or Legacy at that point. So hopefully we'll get a match here sooner rather than later. This is probably my least favourite thing about the Vintage Leagues. Legacy, you can get a match fairly quickly. Vintage, I've had to wait sometimes like 10 or 15 minutes. And it can be a little frustrating. Hello, Bartlett. Oh, hi, Graham. You made it. We're waiting for a match here. After a stunning start to the league at 0-2. Alright, while we're waiting here, I'm just going to duck off for a moment. I will keep an eye on the computer. So if I see something happen, I'll be back. Where's your current LGS? Because that sounds awesome. Something I can do as well while we're waiting, if people are interested, I can just fire up a match in the tournament in the practice room or something. And who are the players from your the three VSL players from your LGS there? Oh, cool. They're all really interesting players. I quite like watching all of them. Yeah, they have some very different opinions on... Oh, cool, we've got a match. Yeah, some very different opinions on how decks should be built. I really like Sperling's his Eternal Weekend Pyromancer list. I thought it was like It's clearly spawned a bunch of... okay, we're going to keep this. Yeah, like spawned a bunch of decks. Like spawned the new Pyromancer lists, which has kind of overtaken Mentor. Clearly worked out really well. Alright, so this hand is going to be... I think this is a nice mix. So I think we really want to try to like Mana Drain on turn 2, Dak on turn 3 with Flusterstorm back up. And we've got outs against shops as well, which is nice. I think like we're only stone cold to maybe like a turn 1 survival or something. And of course dredge. Time Walk's fine. So we only really want to fight here, I think, over like something that's going to matter. Shit, survival. So I guess we can kind of hope to maybe drain... Do we want to drain a hollow one? I don't think we do. I think we would just want to steal a hollow one. But I have a feeling we're just going to get Vengevined out here. So... yeah, what are we gonna do? Do I let this resolve? No, because I think I want to Dak with mana open. So, yeah, we'll mana drain this. Okay, and this is a problem. Or is it? Can we Dak and kill a Vengevine? So we're going to take 12 and then 8 next turn. Yeah, okay, that's just game. So our game plan for this matchup is actually very similar to what we do for Dredge. A lot of graveyard hate just to stop the fast Vengevine wins. We don't like Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm does nothing in the matchup. We want our sweeper. We're going to cut a land as well. Jace gets worse. Pyroblast is not terribly interesting. Top is probably a bit slow. And I think we need one more cut. It might have to be a preordain here. Because I think we want to keep the Abrade. Either that or we go down one piece of Graveyard Hate. I think we can go down one piece of Graveyard Hate. And it might be a cage in this case. Because it's not an all-in graveyard deck like Dredge. So I think being a bit lighter on Grave Hate for some extra... Yeah, just for some extra filtering I think makes sense. Notion Thief is interesting in this matchup. Just because if they have a Bazaar draw. Yeah, I think I like this. I think I want a Time Walk. Turn 1. To make my second land drop and Preordain. Mana Crypt might bite us, but I mean, you know, it's always worth the risk, right? So, okay, so opponent's going to 5, which I'm kind of happy about here. Oh wow, so they've gone right down to 4. So I think from 4, they probably have to have some kind of survival draw. Now, I also know there's a couple of the newer survival lists are playing up to Fall of Vinia, which is... I'm not sure if that's problematic for us yet. I haven't really had a chance to play against it. I guess I'm going to bottom... I think I need to bottom the deck here. And I'll take the second Preordain, play my land, and I think we can pass. So we're going to bottom the deck just because we can't cast it at the moment. I probably should have played out the Crypt, but I don't think we have a high likelihood of losing this turn. At least off a Mulder 4. So Cage can go. We want the land. I guess we'll play the Crypt out now. So now we kind of wish we had the deck. And I guess we're going to snap Preordain, I think. So we have the choice of snap Time Walk or snap Preordain. I think Preordain is going to be the better option here. And I think it needs to be a Volk. And we need to fight over the misstep here because we actually just need to start finding some action. So I guess the good news is the good news there is our opponent's now more or less hellbent. There's nothing that they can really cast just because of their mana constrictions. And I think now it's basically should be, I think, Tinker or Bust from here. Alright, that's game 3, match 3 down. Alright, we'll play one more, and then we might just start a new league, I think. Do people have preferences out of Legacy or Vintage Dredge? I'm just happy to fire up whatever people would rather watch. So it's Legacy Storm, so Legacy Ant, or Vintage Dredge. Happy to play either. So Legacy will be ad nauseum tendrils. Okay. We can do Legacy Storm. Or I have Vintage Storm, although I don't feel as confident on Vintage Storm. So I think this person... Is this person always on shops? I know I've played against them a bunch. I think they're on the leagues a lot. But I can't remember what they play. I guess it doesn't matter. We're actually just going to keep this hand based off library. Hope that it's one of the 50% slower blue decks, and hope that library is enough to carry us a fair way. Alright, no worries. So I guess we'll fire up Legacy Storm next. Yeah, losing to Paradoxical is not terribly fun, is it? It take forever. Alright, so we're playing against Paradoxical. And I think our hand's actually okay against Paradoxical here. I think I'm not going to play out the Time Walk just yet. We do have a land drop to make, which is kind of an incentive to use it, but I think I'd actually rather just not chance it, hold up Drain plus Force, and then see if I can go Drain into Force, pitch Dak, play Jace, play Time Walk. I think that's a better line. We'll let their Time Walk happen. And I think we really want to fight over whatever counters the Drain, because I think the Drain's going to be what wins us this match. I guess we... it doesn't matter too much here. We're going to be able to fetch both colours. I tend to prioritise Volk. The reason I tend to prioritise Volk is because I want to be able to represent Reb, and I often am more interested in casting Dak Faden than I am in casting a Demonic Tutor or Yawgmoth's Will, at least until a little bit later in the game. But it's not going to matter so much here. We're going to get our wish of Mana Drain into Time Walk here. And now we just need to hope that we don't stumble on finding interaction, or it's action before our opponent finds a copy of Paradoxical Outcome. And that seems pretty good. Okay, so we're going to draw the Brainstorm next turn anyway. Hopefully this means fairly soon we're going to be able to get back on library with an active Jace and draw about 400 cards every single turn. We're going to hold off on the Ancestral. I don't think we're in any mad rush to cast it here. And I guess I'll probably want to hold the Brainstorm to pitch to Force. Okay, so from here we're going to Ancestral, see what we find. So I think from here, if we brainstorm, we can probably fluster. So storm count's currently 3, 4, 5. So we need to get to 5 storm. So what have we got? Sapphire, Will, Ancestral, Brainstorm. So Sapphire, Will, Ancestral, Brainstorm. So I think our opponent can't pay for this now. Okay, cool. And we're going to take that one. This is where Notion Thief can shine. We'll take a couple of Mindbreak traps. So Outcome often uses Mentor as a win con. I like Deluge against the traditional Mentor decks. I don't like it against Paradoxical, because if they get a Mentor down and cast a Paradoxical, you've probably already lost the game. Blightsteel Tinker is too slow. And I think I'm going to add a Bioforce and cut an island. And this hand is so close to being amazing, but we're missing land, so we're going to need to mulligan. And mulligan. And we're going to have to keep this one. And Pyroblast is perfect. So opponent's on a library plan at the moment, so I think this actually means we need to cast top. So normally I'd prefer to hold up Pyro, but if they're on library, then realistically we actually need to... it means they're probably going to be playing a slower game. Probably, you can never tell. Sol Ring's fine, they probably won't play anything more out this turn, unless it's like land Outcome. Okay. So now I think we actually need to take a draw step. So normally I'd like to use top on upkeep there, but I don't think I can afford missing a land drop. And it would have to be a Volk or a fetch land. Exactly. So that only gives us like, 5, 7 hits in 52 cards, which I just don't think is good enough. He's almost definitely going to have a forcible backup, but we just need to take the chances that we have. Fuck. I think I can actually concede here. We're going to run back the same list. I don't think we have any reason to change anything. While, you know, he played a Mentor without us knowing there was an outcome there, I don't think that's a good enough reason to play the Deluge. Or to bring in the Deluge. I just think, by and large, I'll stick to my logic, which is usually, yeah, when they get to do their thing, you just won't win. We'll keep this, I think. Yeah, we're going to keep this and preordain. Yeah, it's it was not a good spot. I don't think I like a braid here. The braid's fine and gives you some outs to random situations. But, like, you know, if they assemble a vault key fairly quickly. But I don't think it's what we're into right now. I think we actually need to be doing something more interesting. So Merchant Scroll is, yep, getting Ancestral. We have a misstep. We're going to need to hope that the misstep's enough. And I think we're going to get an Ancestral of our own here. So we want to start getting our game plan online. And our game plan is to probably just like find enough. We're going to bottom both of these. We don't want the library at the moment. We don't. We're away off getting 7 cards in hand. And we don't need more lands at this point either. So our game plan, yeah, Notion Thief is our game plan. So that's a good draw. We need to fade a turn here. Will is also a really nice draw. Alright, so I think it's correct to dig here. So we're going to fetch first. This isn't for thinning, this is to stack our graveyard. And we want to keep DT and Ancestral in the graveyard, so we need to we just need to make sure that we have 5 cards in our graveyard so we can exile everything else. So I guess we'll just grab something like Force Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm loses a lot of value in this matchup really quickly. So we're happy enough to pitch it to Force of Will here. And what we're going to do is, next time our opponent tries to fire off a draw spell, we're going to do Notion Thief with a Pyroblast backup. And I know a lot of outcome decks don't play Misstep. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. So I think what's going to happen here is, yeah, our opponent's going to A-call. And we're going to have the perfect setup to Notion Thief. And we'll draw a bunch of cards. So I'm not sure if that was Salt or someone actually just going, well done. Anyway, so look, we're through the league now, so Legacy Storm is what people want to see next. I know we have one more match, but there's not really much point at this time. So I'm not sure if he was salty. A lot of people are actually happy enough to just go, well, look, good top deck, good job. Vintage leagues in particular are quite good for that. They don't have a huge amount of salty people. Right, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. If people let me know... So it sounds like the preference is for Legacy Storm. The other option is Vintage Dredge at this point. I'm going to take a bathroom break. If anybody has a preference towards Dredge, fire up now. Otherwise, I'll just get started on this Legacy League I've already signed up for. I'll do a quick chat about the deck list first. Okay, so look, as a quick run through for the list I've been playing in Legacy, this is the list I took to Shizuoka. It's probably a touch outdated. The main things being that at the time, Grixis Control was a bigger proportion of the meta than it is now. So I took a couple of ground seals, just because if you resolve a ground seal against Grixis Control, it's already a really bad matchup for them. The way they beat you is just via Snapcaster's discard. Like, Snapcaster is the card that beats you the majority of the time, just via like Hymn to Turak and post-board Surgicals and Snap Fluster and things like that. So if you get a ground seal on the board, they pretty much can't win. I'm not sure what the updated meta looks like. I know there's been a couple of new developments, including some Arclight Phoenix decks. So in the meantime, I'm just sticking with a list that I know and hoping that it's not wildly out of date. I haven't played this deck since November last year. Other notable things, look, we're running a couple of Dreader Knights just because I quite like it against D&T. We're running a Rain of Filth over the 8th discard main deck with the duress in the board. I haven't run a trop in the main for a little while. I'm not sure totally what's correct, but the better mana base has felt very nice against, like, a lot of the Delver decks, against lands, against... the decks that you're normally favoured against anyway, but it's nice getting an extra couple of percentage points. And Trop is often not terribly relevant, even with the fairly large green splash that I have in my sideboard, just because I'm never actually boarding in 5 green cards. I'm only ever boarding in like 3. Apart from that, everything else is relatively stock. We all know since the Pro ban, Thoughtseizer's taken the place of Cabal Therapy, and we've gone up a couple of Preordains. So the list is pretty clean these days. It's almost all just 4-ofs. We have a couple of bounce spells in our sideboard. We have Flusterstorms for combo mirrors. Can be brought in against Grixis control, but I'm using Ground Seal instead. Our last discard spell, Empty the Warrens, just as like an alternative win con. Xanad Swarm just to punk people out from time to time. And Decays largely because of counterbalance. I think without the existence of counterbalance, we probably wouldn't play Abrupt Decay. With all that in mind, let's fire this up. So I'll say I've had a couple more beers than I normally like to have had if I'm playing in the leagues. In particular, when I'm playing Storm, I'm not so worried about the vintage decks. I think Storm's actually a lot more complicated than a lot of the blue decks in vintage. And I just know, like, I lose percentage points fairly quickly when I've had a few, but, you know, whatever, who cares, we're here. I'm streaming for the first time ever, so let's not stress about it too much. We're going to fetch a basic, we're going to ponder. We're fetching a basic because we have no idea who we're playing against. We don't know if we're going to get hit by Wasteland. And Ponder's just going to set us up for another land drop next turn. I want the LED. I don't want the Rain of Filth. So normally I'd ponder this because we're not seeing... Sorry, normally I would shuffle this ponder because we're not seeing a second land. However, there's 2 other cards that I'm into here. So I think I'm going to take the ponder. Hope that we don't get chaliced. And we'll draw the LED next turn so that we don't lose it to like a Thoughtseize or something. Okay, so I guess we're against a Delver deck of some sort, if I had to guess. That was a very quick shuffle. We didn't have a land in the top 3. We need a land. We need a black source from here, basically, just so that we can get started. So we now got enough land drops to actually play the game. We're not terribly incentivized to keep most of the rest of them that we see. We're just going to, I think, maybe 1 more land drop total, and we'll feel pretty happy. We'll fire off the Brainstorm here. I'll probably put away another Brainstorm. Because we no longer need to fix our hand. So, like, Brainstorm's an amazing card when you have cards you need to get rid of. At the moment, we have everything that we need to win the game. We just need a discard spell. Just because our opponents, they're very clearly on like either a Delver or maybe an Arclight Phoenix deck. So they're going to have some form of interaction. If they're an Arclight Phoenix deck, I think... Yeah, we don't care about Lightning Bolt. If they're an Arclight Phoenix deck, they're probably not going to have Force of Will, I don't think. If they're a Delver deck, they could have any number of miserable cards. Okay, so we're playing against Blue-Red Delver. Blue-Red Delver with 4 cards in hand as well, which... Okay, so I think what we want to do here, so we're going to fetch an island, play a Lotus Petal, and we're going to cast a Cabal Ritual. If they force it... So basically what we have from here is a win through a Force of Will, not 2 Force of Wills notably. But we're definitely going to win through 1. So what'll happen is, if we cast our Infernal Tutor here, our opponents can force it, and if they do, we flash back Past in Flames. If they don't force the Infernal Tutor, we're going to grab a discard spell. And we're going to check their hand for anything that might disrupt us. And then we're going to flash back Past in Flames. So one way or another, we're aiming to flash back Past in Flames. Okay, and you can see they've just had to scoop. So against Delver, I like bringing in a Duress and an Empty the Warrens. There's an argument to bring in like 1 removal spell, maybe 2. In general, I'd rather just beat them by being better at going through counter magic than they are at killing me. What we're going to cut is we're going to cut a Cabal Ritual, and we're going to cut an Ad Nauseam. So we cut a Cabal Ritual because it is our most graveyard dependent ritual, and they're bound to bring in some kind of grave hate. The other consideration is Rain of Filth, but Rain of Filth is just a really good card to beat Daze and Spell Pierce with. You make a couple of land drops, you know, take their first, or like their most relevant their most relevant counter spell, you cast Rain of Filth and you've just got 1,000,000 mana. Cabal Ritual's a little weaker to things like Surgical Extraction. I'm bringing the Empty the Warrens as a replacement for Ad Nauseam, just because our life total is a lot more sensitive. And we'll just run this back. And we'll happily keep this. They're not playing discard, so we're not worried about losing the Tendrils. We have a bunch of cantrips. We have a land drop. We're not incentivized to fire off a discard spell on turn 1 because they're not a combo deck. Grafdigger's Cage is fine. So this is going to be nice in that we're going to get to Ponder turn 1, Brainstorm turn 2. take the Dark Ritual. What we're missing at the moment is mana. I think what we really want to do... We have one of two ways to win this matchup, and one of them is going to be via natural tendrils. Which is easier against Delver than it is against some other decks, because they have lots of small interaction spells. The other is we just go for Empty the Warrens. And I think Empty the Warrens is probably a more reasonable way to win the match. If we just drop like 10 to 12 goblins on the board, it's really hard for them to beat. So I'll play the land to beat Daze, we'll brainstorm, and we're going to put the tendrils back. And I think a brainstorm back. Because we already have everything we need to win here. We need to grab a swamp because we saw Wasteland. And what I want to do here is I'm going to Thoughtseize. So if they have a Daze, they'll Daze this, which is fine. So we were leading on the Thoughtseize there in case they had like double force or something. So if they have like double force and a threat, then we take the threat. If they have a single force, then we just, we get to kill them. And let's just hope that they like Surgical Extraction Thoughtseize or something here. That's annoying. So the real question here is, what do we think their odds of having Force of Will are? Let's cast a Dark Ritual. So we'd really love for our opponent to Force of Will this. I mean, that'll concede. We're happy with him conceding as well. Okay, so now we have another question, which is, do we just jam? So this is going to be really risky, and I think I'm going to choose to just jam here. And I feel like, based on what he's doing, it's likely to backfire. So I think we can concede here. That's fine. So it was a high risk play there. It was very likely incorrect to keep going after he paused on the first ritual, but you know, you got to try sometimes. So this is typically quite a positive matchup for us. So we're going to just, you know, in this particular case, hope that it holds true and hope that we can push through it. After we took a little bit of a gamble in the last game and lost, we're going to keep this hand. This hand's great. We've got something like 90% of the combo already in hand. We just need to draw something like, I think, discard spell, ritual. Now we just need a discard spell. So the problem our opponent's deck has against us is that it's quite loaded with like burn spells. Which, you know, they do things. It's not that they're worthless. It's just that against us, they're not terribly relevant. All they do is threaten your life total. And so for now, I think we're happy to just sit here and make lane drops. Our opponent's not doing anything. They have no clock. Not that we can do anything much at the moment either, but alright, so Terramander's guess a clock. It's going to be a while before it can do anything. And Past in Flames is an amazing draw. So, for anybody who's not terribly familiar with Legacy Storm, it's built really heavily around Past in Flames specifically. Past in Flames is just Grafdigger's Cage makes it a little bit less good. Past in Flames specifically is just a card that look, it just beats counter spells. Straight up beats them. You need something like 3 counter spells, I think, a lot of the time to actually beat a Past in Flames played from hand. Of course, Grafdigger's Cage in this particular case locks us out from actually casting Past in Flames for any value, but it's... So our opponent must have a very reactive hand. Yeah, so I tend to think Terraman is too slow for Delver. Blue-red Delver even more so. Whatever, Null Rod's fine. Having said that, I think it's it makes a useful threat in Rug Delver, I think, sometimes. I think it can like do some interesting things. I guess we put back the Tendrils here. Are we going to win with Tendrils from hand, or are we going to win with... Let's grab a Swamp. So Rug is kind of happy to have it because it's like... You already have so many... so many cards that are like quite awkward. Can we win from here? Let me have a think. So if I cast a Dark Ritual, what do you reckon my opponent does? No, I think I have to wait a turn. What do I? So 2... 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Let's have a think here. We might be able to Tendrils from hand. To do so, we need to hit another ritual or another spell. So if we go something like Dark Ritual, Ponder, that brings us to Storm 4, 5, 6, 7, Infernal Tutor. Alright, let's try. So our opponent is not terribly likely to force of will this, given we have another land open. He's not going to daze it either. So Justin, out of curiosity, if you saw a Storm player do this, what would you do? Alright, so he's double dazed us here, which I think is actually really, really good for us. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so Dark Ritual. So we have a question here, which is... Storm count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So notably, even if we can't get through what our opponent is doing this turn, we're actually still looking really good. We have cantrips on the top of our library, which are going to find us more cards and build us more storm to let us cast this Tendrils from hand. And I think we're going to Thoughtseize again. What do we take? I guess we take a Pyroblast. 7, 8, 9 Tendrils. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we'll go to our next match. So something that I think is worth mentioning right here is that we just saw how weak Pyroblast can be in the matchup. I know a lot of people board it in, and I think like 1 to 2 is okay if you have worse cards. But it's not that uncommon to, like at certain points later in the game, against your opponents that are boarding in a lot of Pyroblast, to like duress or Thoughtseize when you're ready to go. And just to see like a couple of cards that have just been rotting in hand for ages, it's a real weakness of the card. It's not that I think it's not worth having in your sideboard. I just don't think, and I don't think it's like never wildly incorrect to bring in against Storm. I just think people forget that Storm is fundamentally a black deck, not a blue deck, and they're playing to win like this counter war, or just to go after all your cantrips, while forgetting the fact that like you just keep drawing black cards off the top, and at some point that will win you the game, and you get to win by doing that, while your opponent has to hold up red mana for their Pyroblast. So fair, that game was also helped by us just having tendrils in hand. I think we're in a much worse shape if we didn't have the tendrils. Just given like our opponent had cage plus null rod, which, you know, put Storm in a really tough spot. Cage in and of itself isn't unbeatable. Null rod is hard but not unbeatable, but the combination of the two just means, you know, you switch off Lion's Eye Diamond, and you need to do something wildly different to try to win the game. So on the draw this time, we're definitely snapping off this hand as well. I think a lot of people just tend to assume that Storm likes to mull for like these relatively aggressive hands. You don't. You want to play like this slow, controlling kind of game. You sculpt. You're not interested in finding like the perfect 7, because that almost never happens. What you actually want is just like hands like this. Oh wow. What on earth is happening? Is our opponent playing with Underworld Dreams or something? Our opponent has played a black card and a discard spell, so I think I want to play an LED here. LED being the best card in their hand currently. Sorry, they haven't played a discard spell yet, but they are almost definitely running some number of discard spells. Oh, that's interesting. So he's just trying to get us with a fast clock. I probably don't like the second Thoughtseize, and I guess I don't like Preordain, maybe? Yeah, Preordain. We'll fetch and we'll ponder. I'm really curious as to what our opponent's on. So we're going to draw Dark Ritual here so that we can dodge discard spells. I forgot about Master of the Feast. That was stupid. Let's find out what our opponent's doing. Yeah, okay, so it's an Underworld Dreams deck. Oh, shit, there's Trinisphere in here. I guess we'll just take a Sinkhole. It doesn't matter. We have Threshold. Let's ponder anyway. So I think we're just going to try to... I think we can natural tendrils from here. 7, 8, 9. Yep, this should do it. So is there anybody watching that knows what the fuck this deck is? So a quick chat about what I'm doing with my sideboard here. I assume there's going to be some Hardgrave hate. Black gets all the best Hardgrave hate. So we're going to trim a Past in Flames. There's an argument to trim Dark Petition, but I like having a density of tutors, just because, especially against like graveyard-based decks. Yeah, it's mono black ape, Justin. Not even the mono black ape that we're used to. Yeah, so like having density of tutors is very good, even if sometimes like one of them will just be a dud. You just have to accept that sometimes. We're bringing in the Empty the Warrens instead of the second Past in Flames, just because Empty, like if you resolve it turn 1 or turn 2, you drop like 10 or 15 goblins in play and you basically ask your opponent to beat you. We're going to cut some number of discard spells in this matchup, and I wonder if maybe we should also bring in some Flusterstorms. No. Okay, so look, our opponent has lock pieces, so we need bounce. I guess we'll cut some Duresses and I think Rain of Filth because they have land destruction. So Duresses just because, look, they almost definitely have some, horrible Hymn to Turak plan. Duress isn't great against Hymn to Turak. It's great against Force of Will. So we're going to snap this one off. This has a cantrip, it has mana, and it has interaction. Even better, it has natural interaction, so yeah, sure. Like Leyline of the Void, this is exactly why we trimmed the Past in Flames. So Dark Ritual into... So you're going to drop the stupid 5/5 again. 3-ball is probably okay. Like he needs to 2 for 1 to drop a 3-ball, so we need to top deck a second land at some point. So right about now we're talking about one of the weaknesses of Storm. Which is that it has a really low land count, so it's really bad against like Trinisphere effects and so on. Oh wow, what is this? Okay, this is cool. Man, I don't even care what happens from here. This is awesome. So notably, we're pitching a cantrip here. We can't cast our cantrips anyway. And we're going to pitch Past in Flames, which I'm not terribly happy about. Past in Flames is also not how we're going to win this game. So the way we're going to win this game is by probably just like casting a million spells and then tutoring. So I don't think we can actually win from here, so I'm just going to concede. We're going to run it back. I don't think there's anything wrong with our sideboard plan. Yeah, we got cheesed out by 3-ball. Yes, that happens. I don't think that's a good reason to change what we're doing. And we will, of course, take the play. We need to mulligan this. It doesn't do anything. We're going to keep this. It's really risky. We have a scry and a draw. And we need to top deck either a Lotus Petal or a land. This is the kind of hand that can go really, really, really wrong. So Leyline of the Void we actually don't care about. This has a really good ad nauseam line. We just have all the mana plus a tutor. Black Vice is fine. Trinisphere is not fine. That's actually a big problem for us. And this might actually make us lose the game from here. So I feel like unfortunately we're going to get screwed just by, you know, missing our land drop. Our opponent having Trinisphere every single time. What do you do? And there's a Lotus Petal that we needed about 6 turns ago, so we'll just pack it up. I'm actually just going to take a break for a moment, so I'm going to cancel this and I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm glad it's a fringe deck as well. It's like 3 ball plus rack plus like everything else is just, it was brutal. It was a cool deck. I can understand why it's fringe. I just think, their game plan of just trying to resolve a 3 ball and lock you out so that the rack can do its thing is probably like worse than just playing your normal lock piece decks, but yeah, worked really well there. So what do you do? This hand's fantastic. We have multiple tutors. We have lands. We have an early ad nauseum if we can like top deck one more piece of mana. We're missing discard spells, which is fine. So from here, we actually have a win in hand through a daze. We have no cantrips. And we have no... Alright, how much mana do we have? So we have no cantrips, we have no... discard spells. So we just have to hope to dodge Force of Will. Our opponent has probably like a 40-something% chance of having it in hand. So I think I'm actually going to jam here. Our opponent hasn't cantripped. Oh shit. I punted. Should have played Lotus Petal. Yep. That was wrong. That was a very stupid play on my behalf. And that's probably going to cost us the game here. I think I want to Infernal Tutor. So we're going to Infernal Tutor for another Lion's Eye Diamond. So the reason to Infernal Tutor for an LED there is if you go like LED, crack, cast Past in Flames, you're probably winning. Alright, and we're going to try this again. So I'm going to assume that he intends to Force of Will the tutor. So at this point, I think... So how much mana do I have? I have 6 mana. Alright, so what we're going to do now, I think I'm actually just going to jam. Like, I've already put myself in a bad spot just by messing up turn 1. Oh wow, he's drawn 3 brainstorms. So it's pretty much now or never. We can beat a Daze. We can't beat a Force of Will or a Spell Pierce here. And so we're playing against Grixis Delver. We got lucky. We just managed to keep top decking exactly what we needed to. So multiple tutors, multiple pieces of interaction. Oh, sorry, multiple tutors, multiple pieces of mana. And we had a Past in Flames in hand. So we just kept... We got to just keep jamming, essentially, until we got there. Which isn't realistically how it should go. We're probably going to sideboard the same way that we do against Blue-Red Delver. So there is a question here as to whether or not it's better to cut Cabal Ritual or Preordain. I'm going to cut the Cabal Ritual just for the same reason. It's worse against like surgical extractions and so on. Okay, this hand's weak to a wasteland. That's strong overall. We have a very balanced hand. And we're really happy to see the extra land there, because that's going to make our brainstorm good. I kind of want the 3rd land. So I think we want to get up to 3 lands in this matchup. Okay, so yeah, okay, there's the wasteland. That's not the end of the world. Our hand is now equipped to beat a wasteland. Maybe not 2 Delvers though. So we definitely want both Thought Seizers, and I think what we want to do next turn is cast a Cabal Ritual and then a Thought Seize. That depends on whether or not the Delvers flip. So if the Delvers flip... Okay, so they're not flipping. looks like they're representing a Reb here. What did our opponent do with the Preordain? So while people are here, does anybody have any questions about the deck that I'm playing, or Storm in general, or anything like that? Days is fine. So our opponent now basically has a 3-card hand. And Delvers that are stubbornly not doing anything. So we're going to try and repeat the same play. So we're actually going to take the Angler here. The reason we're taking the Angler rather than anything else is because... Oh. So I made a mistake with my math there. So our opponent's either trying to punk us with a blue card, naturally drawn off the top, which I think is incorrect, or he's just drawn garbage. Okay, and now he's got a very fast clock. So what we need to do here is we need to ponder into Dark Ritual. So Inquisition is actually fine for us here. The reason being, when Inquisitions, we're going to Brainstorm, we're going to tuck the tutor. We're going to take 6, 7 damage, and we're going to go to 1. So we'll draw the tutor. He can take a Dark Ritual from our hand, and we're just going to kill him next turn. Oh wait, we're only going to take 6 damage, so we're only going to go to 2. I'm not good at Bitter Blossom math here, apparently. Yeah, thanks, Ramo39. Yep, 2 life. So he has no good choices here. He has to take a Dark Ritual. And a Dark Ritual is not going to be good enough. So I think something that people don't always understand is Storm's really, really, really good against Delver. It seems like on paper, like Delver should be quite good against Storm. It has a million pieces of interaction. It has a fast clock. It does almost everything right. The problem being, Storm's really good at beating interaction. Like the biggest problem that Storm has is it really struggles against lock pieces. And Delver just doesn't have lock pieces. Alright, so this is going a bit better than our Vintage League did. Okay, so let's try to make sure that we can break even from this league and hopefully win this one. Yeah, Trout Stuffing, I don't want to play the mirror. Playing the mirror is fucking miserable. I don't know how much you've played the mirror before, but it's horrible. We're gonna keep this. This is really close to. Like, we have business, we have mana, and we have interaction, and we have lands. We're not cold to Chalice on 1 as well, which is nice. So I don't mull many hands with Storm, which is probably like... I probably should mull more often than I do. But having said that, I just tend to feel like there are so many good hands, and often if you just sit there and play the game, you tend to go pretty well. I think we're probably going to duress this turn. I don't know. So Island Go. What does that mean for us? We don't care about the Cabal Ritual on top, really. It's not getting us anywhere just yet. So Island Go means either Miracles or Sneak and Show. No, we need to play a land. So, if we're playing against miracles, we lose to counterbalance. Okay, cool. So it's sneak and show. So intuition. Fuck. So I think we're more or less dead. But if we can top deck a ritual next turn, I think we might be able to win. So this is one of those times when Dark Petition is actually a dud. We can get to 4 mana. Alright, I guess we just have to like pass the turn and hope. So it's going to intuition, grab, show and tell Grizzlebrand into play, and be able to draw 14 cards. We can't try to pretend that we're not on the deck that we're playing. We've already cast Duress, which is like, it's a big giveaway. So it's already drawn 7 now. That's interesting. Maybe he's trying to cast Omniscience. Or if he has Sneak Attack, I think we're just dead. Okay, so he almost definitely has a force of will. Alright, well, I guess we just have to try from here. So we're going to get to 5, 6, 7, 8. So opponent has another 14 cards next turn. I think I'm actually just going to concede here. I don't think we can actually beat like 21 cards drawn. We're going to board in a Duress, Chain of Vapor, 2 Fluster Storms. I think maybe I want 2 chains. So we're boarding in Fluster Storm just because it beats combo mirrors. Chain of Vapor, just because we need to be able to have an out to like a, what do you call the Ley Line of Sanctity. Duress because we want more interaction. And we're going to board out, it's just like a random mix of cards. So Rain of Filth because it's better in slower matches. Past in Flames because we need to trim something. Maybe Dark Petition's a better card. But they also bring in Grafdigger's Cage a lot of the time. This is a tough one. So I'm going to try something a bit different, and I'm going to cut a Dark Petition over a Past in Flames. Although, if they have Intuition, they probably also have Cunning Wish. Okay, so Past in Flames is really good against like the blue decks that just rely on counter magic. In this particular case, we're playing against a deck that has like Cunning Wish, Grafdigger's Cage, 1,000,001 frustrating cards. So I think going down on a piff is okay. We can trim 1 Preordain. It's slightly slow. We can trim a land because, you know, there's no wastelands. Cabal Ritual just because it's one of our weaker rituals, and a Rain of Filth because it's our other weak ritual. Crap, I think I wanted a Xanted Swarm as well. We'll keep this. We will snap this off every time. We have Polluted Delta for into Thoughtseize to make sure that we don't lose really quickly. Our opponent is relatively likely to mulligan, just because Sneak and Show mulligans a lot. And then we've got some Duresses to follow it up with. But we're 100% firing off a Thoughtseize on the first turn. We're going to hope to take a Grizzledick, just because I think that's the worst card for us in the matchup. So he's mulliganing, we're going to keep. Let's hope he goes down to 5 cards. And we can put that on top. So it's theoretically possible that he has Blood Moon in this matchup. Okay, so I guess we're going to take Force of Will here. Like, he has Omniscience and Sneak Attack, but no threat. And he can't activate green man put a card on top of their library. So I guess it's possible they show and tell Omni into play, but even, yeah, okay, we're going to take Force. I'm not sure this is correct. This is a tough one. He's scryed to the top. He has 2 pieces of business and no creature. And I guess we're going to dress here. So I guess we're going to take Sneak Attack. Because that's, if he top decks a red source, I think that puts us on a really short clock. Alright, so what do we do? We can't do anything about this. Alright, bad beats. What do you do? So I've noted in that particular situation, the only top deck he had that lost us the game was he was drawing blind as well. So he hadn't cantripped. He didn't know what was on top of his library. The only thing that might have even slightly lost us the game was show and tell, or look, to be honest, the red source also lost us the game, just because like a sneak attack into Emrakul. So I think it was correct to take the sneak attack. I'm open to alternative opinions on that, but I think it was correct. We're snap keeping this. This is, if we preordain into a tutor, I think we win next turn. So we're topping the Past in Flames because we kind of really want that ad nauseum. If we're against a non-blue matchup, all right. So everyone's blue tonight. If we're against a non-blue matchup, then the ad nauseum wins us the game next turn. If we're against a blue deck, Past in Flames is a beating and also like not soft to discard, which is kind of the scariest thing that some of the other blue decks can do. So like being able to Thought Seize, Himu, Past in Flames negates all of that. So he chose to shuffle. So I think we want to Thought Seize here. So we're going to Thought Seize now and hope to take like a take his Force of Will. So he's going to want to cast a Tarmogoyf in the coming turn. Wasteland's not very useful. He's not going to want to hold up Bolt. This is interesting. Okay, so we are going to ad nauseam here, and we're not going to ad nauseam lower than well, we're going to be careful with our ad nauseam. And we're going to be able to ad nauseam with black floating. And a Lion's Eye Diamond in play. Okay, so now we know exactly how much life we have to play with. 6, 7, 8. 7, 8, 9. So if we go from 3 mana to 6 mana to 5 mana to 7, 8, 9. And we're basically going to get Tendrils for perfect here. We're playing against Rug Delver, for anybody who's not terribly familiar with Legacy. And our plan against Rug Delver is to hope that nobody has paid attention to Sean Brown and started playing Cinderglades. And also cut ad nauseam and try to get an early Empty the Warrens. So our opponent had the perfect hand to beat creature-based matchups there. So we got a bit lucky. They had Dismember, Tarfire, Bolt, Goyf, and a Wasteland in case we were dumb enough to fetch the wrong card. And we're going to snap this hand off as well. This is actually gold. I'm kind of curious here. So if our opponent doesn't have Force of Will, we can drop 10 goblins on the board. So I'm not sure if this is the right play. So let's just hope they don't have a sweeper. If they don't have a sweeper, we just win here. So going off blind like that it's high risk, high reward. if your opponent's kept 7, typically they're going to have something like a 40% chance of having Force of Will. They may or may not have a Daze. Now, we're not terribly worried about Daze in that position, because like Daze only... oh, cool, we win. So Daze in that particular position only stops us from casting the first ritual. We get to try again next turn, or cantrip, whatever it is that we need to do. In that particular position, the only card that beats us is actually Force of Will. And so you only need to fade that 40%. It goes up a little bit if they mulligan, which they may or may not. And clearly didn't in that particular position. Mulligans... one of our friends, Jack Jiggins, explained the math behind it. Like, it just, your chances of drawing a Force of Will if you mulligan go up because you have 2 chances to find it. If you haven't mulliganed, you're probably playing on like a Spell Pierce or a Flusterstorm, or maybe like even just something like a Surgical Extraction, which when you're doing what I did just there, is not a good card. It's possible we should have cheated one more time, but you don't want to play into Daze at that point either. Anyway, we got there. I hope everybody enjoyed watching the stream. It's been good fun. I will probably do it again some other time. So I'm going to reply in chat from here on in.